See, I made it out.
You got a card in your wallet?
I used to, but
Let me just write my cell number.
yeah. I used to have your number. I don't know what.
I used to have yours too, but I'm
Probably.
yeah. So just text me or something. So this
I will.
okay.
Okay. Up here next to Rogers, they know that on the 13th. Like I read through
Good afternoon. Y'all can do better than that. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. So my name is Dejan Cox, and I just want to say thank you to everybody that's here today, helping me carry out my vision for the hope for the community. Right now we're going to do an introduction. I just want to give you guys a little bit of insight on the behind the scenes of creating this event. So for myself, I'm a first-year student at The Ohio State University. I major in public policy and political science, and I have dreams of being an elected official one day. So I'm very passionate about public service. Today, I thought a great thing would be is that I feel like there's a huge gap between the police and the community. Just because, and from working downtown, I've learned that being from the south side of Columbus and then working inside the courthouse and working inside the state house, there's differences between the lives that we live. So that's why I thought today it'd be a great idea to bring in speakers, so these speakers could directly have conversations with the people that they represent down in the courthouse and the state house. Today we have plenty of speakers. We have First Assistant Chief Potts with CPD. We have the CPD. We have the CPD recruiting unit here as well. We'll have State Representative Latina Humphrey. We have Executive Director Mike Primo with the Community Development for All People. Then we have myself, and then we also have Napoleon Bell, he will come up and he will also introduce himself as well. We also have Judge Bill Hendrick in the building. We'll have Judge Jazza Page over in Common Pleas. And I wanted this for you guys to be able to come in and have a conversation with them and get to know them personally. And let's have some food and let's have a great time and let's network. I feel that it's time that in this community, if we want to see change, we need to come together and we need to have these type of conversations. The conversation today, I'll give you guys the opportunity to ask them questions after they speak. But today it might be a tough conversation. But what I do ask is for everyone to remain respectful towards each other, because we all have one ending goal, and that's to have a safe community. Thank you guys, and Napoleon Bell will be coming up next.
My goodness. Yeah, you know, right? Our young people making it happen. Right. You know, also when I think about young people, the young people that greeted me when I came in the door, I love that. The volleyball, there was like the respect volleyball. All right. these are things that we often talk about, in many conversations that older folk and those in positions of authority about, what to do about our young people, right? But often we don't have them in the room to hear from them, to give us some type of direction or perspective. And so it's good to see that when we have some young people says, hey, we're going to get involved and we want to bring people together to be able to have that conversation and make sure that we are in the room to have that conversation. So I appreciate you, good John, by bringing all of us together here today. And hopefully this isn't the last one, right? All right. Very good. So we do have several people that are going to be speaking today, and I hope that you listen intently and also ask questions of them of how, what their office and what they do can help with the issue in regards to whether it's community police relations or the violence that are happening in our communities. But what can their office do to be able to make a positive impact on that, help reduce some of those negative issues that are plagued with some parts of town. So if we could do that, that would be great. Also, like I said, we will give you time to be able to ask those questions, respect the questions, and then be able to have a conversation. But we do have several people on the list, so we hope to get through those all today. So if we run a little long, we might have to cut you off a little bit as far as the questions. But then I'm sure the elected officials and those officials that are here will be more than happy to stay afterwards to answer more questions. So appreciate that. So first up, that I'm going to bring up to the podium to start the conversation and to talk a little bit about himself and also his journey and what he is doing. And that's also, let me step back. Those who are up here that come to speak, we want them also to talk about their journey, because they're also, mentors and to us, the young people and those out there, about how they got to where they are, right? So first up, I'd like to bring up Mike Primo. He's an experienced engagement professional with demonstrated history of leadership in nonprofit, government issues, advocacy, and political organizations. He's skilled in fundraising, grant writing, government relations, communication, management, and community building. Mike Primo. Come on.
Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Sorry, I'm losing track of the time. I am Mike Primo. I'm the Executive Director of Community Development for All People. I'd like to welcome you all here to the residences at Career Gateway. This space that you're in has a variety of purposes, but we do things like job training and community building events here. Before I begin, I want to introduce a couple of people. Kim Hairston is our Community Connection Coordinator. You probably all know Kim. And then right over here, Deborah Diggs is one of our board members. So she's one of my bosses. So say nice things about me to her, please. I appreciate that. So any chance I get, I like to talk about my own personal journey for a second. Like, I was in politics and government for about 20 years. I bopped around the country and was working on different campaigns, political campaigns, public education campaigns. And I landed in Ohio, and I wound up working at the Ohio Senate as the chief of staff for the Ohio Democratic Caucus. And then one night at a bar, I got drunk, and I was a fool with a woman that wasn't my wife. And my political career came to a screeching halt. And at that time, I had just started going to Church for All People. And I went up to the then pastor and also then executive director, John Edgar, after church one day and said, hey, can I come talk to you? I got some stuff going on in my life. And he said, sure. So I met with him, and he said, yeah, you really did make a mistake, that's for sure. But he also said, God loves you just the way you are, and God is not finished with you yet. And it's the first time in my life I'd ever heard anybody say those words. And they've stuck with me ever since. So and then to be able to get a job later on with Community Development for All People and then take over as an executive director is a real journey and speaks about the power of redemption and the power of owning up when you make a mistake, but understanding that it's not the last chapter of your life story. So Community Development for All People has been the place I've been looking for my whole life, Church for All People. We do a variety of services to the community, like the Free Store that provides gently used clothing and household items to about 20,000 people a year. The All People's Fresh Market, which gives out free healthy food to about 350 families a day. We're the third largest site of free food distribution in Franklin County, one of the top in the country. We do youth engagement. We do work with pregnant moms and new parents to make sure kids are born healthy and enter kindergarten ready to learn. And we've done over $130 million in development of affordable housing on the South Side over the years with ourselves and our partners. And the reason I mention all that is because we've done a lot to transform the South Side into a place where all people can live and thrive, but we haven't done it alone. And I think one of the saddest parts about American society today is we're taught that we have to do it ourselves. We have to be strong, we have to be independent, we have to be the John Wayne type, and just I need to come up with a newer example for younger folks, but just that we have to do it all ourselves, and asking for help or relying on other people is a weakness, when in fact it is a tremendous strength. We go farther together than we go by ourselves, right? What's the old saying? If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And so over the years, we have built some amazing relationships between organizations and individuals, because everybody has a role to play in the transformation of the community. So I want each of you to say out loud right now, I have a role to play in this community.
I have a role to play in this community.
That's right. And I want you to believe it, and I want you to live into it, because no one, whether you slept on the street last night, or whether you got a six-figure salary, whether you did time, whether you don't have an education, whether you have a PhD, you all have a role to play in the transformation of your community. And anybody who tells you otherwise is lying to you. So believe that in your heart. Learn to build relationships with people who don't look like you, who don't live like you, who don't have the same background and experience as you, right? I grew up in the suburbs of Detroit, Michigan. And living here on the south side of Columbus, just a few blocks away here, has been a real eye-opener for me. And it's a beautiful thing. I am blessed to live in a community where not everybody looks like me or has the same background and experience as me. Diversity is a strength. Diversity is an asset that we can use to transform our community. So as you listen to the other speakers today, they're all going to be basically saying the same thing, and it bears repeating over and over. Building relationships is how we get the work done. Building relationships is how we transform the community. Relationships involve uncomfortable conversations sometimes, right? But when you have a relationship with somebody, a strong relationship, you can have those conversations. It's easier to do when you have that relationship, as opposed to you're just somebody that they don't know and they don't have any idea who you are or what you've been through. So building those relationships is really important. I'm going to stop here and turn it back over to Napoleon Bell. But thank you all for being here today. I hope this day is really impactful for you. Thanks so much. Take care.
Thank you so much, Mike. And really what you spoke on really stood out in regards to building relationships, and we can't do it alone, and then we go farther together. In the many years that I know that I've worked in Central Ohio as law enforcement and government, is that we can't do anything alone. We've got to work together. As you may know, and as you see throughout even this area here, it's continuing to build up, and we're continuing to get more and more people coming in from all over the country. And so when you talk about building relationships with people that you don't know, or that you have, reach out to your neighbors, because that's what's going to make the difference in building that community and going farther ahead. And so one thing I know when I was in law enforcement, I always talked to a lot of block watching and civics about, get to know your local police officer that is in your particular district. Have them come by just to be able to start that relationship. Because what I knew is that as an officer, if I heard the call go out and it was that address, I know the person that lives there. And so I'm going to get there that much quicker, try to get there that much quicker, because I have that relationship and that connection. So to do that, so that actually leads into the person I'm going to bring up that has been doing that ever since she got here. And I know if you haven't seen her on TV and out in the neighborhoods, this, that, and the other, you must be on her rock, because she has been literally everywhere, continuing to build relationships and leading the teams of law enforcement through Columbus Division of Police to continue to build those relationships within communities. So without further ado, if I could bring up Assistant Chief Chief Potts, come on up.
Thank you.
Sure.
And thank you for being thoughtful, for putting the microphone down where I can reach it. Hi, everyone. How are you? Hi. So I am here on behalf of Chief Elaine R. Bryant and the Columbus Division of Police, representing her vision and what she sees the vision becoming as we move into a new policing era. I did want to acknowledge my CLOs who are in the back, community liaison officers, if you can raise your hand. You already met the recruiting team. Collectively, I'll just say a little bit about who I am and what I oversee. So I've been here roughly about almost 2 years. June 21st will make 2 years Chief Bryant and I arrived here from the city of Detroit as the new Chief of Police and First Assistant Chief. For us, it was different, right? We came from a city predominantly minority policing agency, and we came into Columbus, not knowing what to expect. But for us, this was a calling for us. We started coming to the city well before Chief Bryant even got the job because we felt that this is where God wanted us to be for two reasons. One, we felt that we could have impact. We understood the culture of policing. We also understood that people in Columbus had not seen women that looked like Chief Bryant and ourselves in the ranks of Assistant Chief, which was created before I got here, and then Chief Elaine Bryant, who was a Black female as well. But we also thought it was important that you knew our background. So I didn't come from humble beginnings. My mother was a single parent, grew up in the inner city of Detroit, grew up in an environment that was rich in gang violence. And no matter how much my mother tried to keep me on the straight and narrow, I was just that child. I was that child that continued to push the envelope as much as I can. But thank God for God's grace, right? I had a daughter, young in high school, by a drug dealer and a known gang member. My sister got pregnant in high school, and we continued what we consider that generational curse because my mother herself was a teen mom. And so I knocked my head around a couple times, but then I saw my daughter. And I said, this is gonna stop with me. This is gonna stop. This progressive self-destruction will stop with me having my child. She won't grow up in the same environment and become problematic like I was for my mother. And so I began the journey to join the police department. I graduated from high school, and this was the first stop. Life ain't been easy. We come here. We did a really good job of embracing the community when we got here because it was important that you knew who we were as people before we enacted laws, and it was important that the police officers that you see daily, that they bought into the message that we were bringing. I'm happy to say this division, I think, is on the right track to being an exemplary law enforcement community for two reasons. One, because we put community first. It is why you see the officers look a little bit different than they did 2 years ago. It is why you're going to see them in more community spaces than you've ever seen them before. It is why it's important that as we sit at the top of the organization, that we create programming on a scale from the chief's office. We cannot tell officers to do community service when you don't see us in the community. So we have to lead from the front. It is why we're tirelessly trying to create programming that saves youth from themselves. Because we all know that it's not about parental neglect. Some of it is, but the majority, we have single parent households where people are just doing their best. They're trying to survive day to day. And so what we want to do is create a hub that allows programming to funnel through the division as we work with the grassroots organizations that have been doing this work way before we got here and will be doing this work well after we leave. It's important that our officers understand that when they put their uniform on, they are a reflection of the community and what the community wants to see. It is not our job to create policing as we know it. It's our job to create policing as you know it. And so for us, it's important. Are we seeing an increase in crime? I'm not going to back away from the fact that this year started off extremely violent. But I'm also not going to sugarcoat that there was a law passed last summer by the governor's office that allowed more guns to be infiltrated into our communities. So we're going to talk about the increase in crime and policing. We got to have that conversation because it starts at the legislative branch and how we get guns out of the hands of people who don't need them. I'm also going to talk about the fact that for me, having youth programming, having young men like Mr. Cox, Mr. Cox today since he put this on, a person who reached out to me when I was new here in the city of Columbus, didn't know me from anybody, and said, hey, I heard you're new to assistant chief. I want to get to know you, and I want to try to help you do some things here to save our youth. Now, what would have happened had I been so high on my ego that I thought that who is this young guy reaching out to me? I'm in charge. Had I not listened to him, I would have really, really been in the wrong place, and I wouldn't have had the opportunity to see what a brilliant young man that we have in the city of Columbus. He's just one of many that needs to be highlighted. Thank you for having the leadership and the courage, because it's not easy to stand in front of people and go against the norm. It's not easy to write history over again, because Black men in this community are not criminals. They're not. There's a small element in this community that does the vast majority of the criminal activity. That conversation has to happen, and it has to happen with our prosecutors, our judges, our police chiefs, the community, because it takes a village to continue to raise these kids. And if we continue to point fingers at each other, we will continue to see destruction, poverty, and gun violence in the city of Columbus. And I'm not buying that. I didn't come here to be a failure. I came here with the intention of changing the culture of policing. And I believe we're doing that. I believe that you all believe that our officers are the best that we have. They're dedicated, they're well-trained, and they just needed some guidance. They needed a different point of view. And so I'm happy to stand here on behalf of Chief Elaine Bryant. Thank you for having me. I think it's important that we have these tough conversations. Anybody who's seen me, I don't shy away from hard questions. If I don't know it, I'm not gonna lie and say I do know it. And if I can't get the answer today, I'll make sure that I follow up and get you the answer. I believe it's important that as leaders, we're transparent. We don't always get it right. Policing is not always 100% the right way to go. And so we're creating programming, as you'll see, in the last 2 years that we've been here, we moved that needle in the direction that it needs to go, where we focus on the community and healing more than we focus on enforcement. So I want to thank you, Napoleon, for your leadership and your partnership. We work hand in hand in trying to solve this problem. But it's not just about us, and we can't do it alone. Enforcement is not the way out of crime. It is community grassroots programming that affects the teens where they are, so that we don't see them. By the time they get to me, sometimes it's too late. By the time the handcuffs are on them, we've already put their path in motion. I want to save them before they ever have to sit in a scout car in handcuffs. That's my goal, that's my passion, and I think it's God-led. And thank you for having me.
Hey, Chief, before you go, does anybody by chance have any, we might take some questions.
Oh, I'm sorry, y'all.
Yes, sir.
Well, Chief, welcome to Columbus.
Thank you.
Did you get a chance before being in Columbus with the history of our police department?
Oh, yes.
So the good part was prior to your the other lady's appointment is that we already had a white woman as the chief.
Yes.
So I think it helped pave the way to bring you into the job that you're in now. So
Oh, absolutely. She was actually the first LGBTQ plus female to be in the division. So I would say that she led the way. But Chief Bryant is the first African-American woman to sit in this seat. So
Right.
that's important.
yeah,
It's important to acknowledge everybody else, but for her and the Black and brown community, this was the first.
right.
And so hopefully we won't be the last.
Okay. Thank you.
What do you do if somebody that you call the police on, the police don't do anything to them if they've done something violent to someone else because they're friends?
Okay, if you call the police and the police get there and they won't take police action legally because they're friends with the person who did the assault,
Yes,
what do?
yes.
You make sure you file a citizen complaint, because if that is happening, if it did occur, we want to know about it.
Because I called and left voice messages 3 times for someone to call me back, and nobody's called me back.
Who are you leaving voice messages with?
I forget now, but it's been 2 years ago when it happened. My mother was being during a home invasion in Southfield, and the cops were finding the person that did it, and there's no police report you can find, there's no report number, there's no nothing.
And police officers did come to the scene?
They came to the scene and the hospital where she told them who did it, and nobody has done nothing.
Okay, so I'm here now, and I'll have to give you my card. And so let me look into it. If it's 2 years ago, I need to be able to go back traces, but whatever I can do to help, I'm absolutely doing. Anyone else?
Anybody else have a question for Mr. Chief?
Yeah. Welcome to Columbus.
Thank you.
Are you guys looking to actually, are you very diverse with your hiring? I have a son who's thinking about wanting to go into police. He's in college right now.
Okay.
He's thinking about it. I'm just trying to see what's the process.
So
Join the force.
if you look over, can my recruiting team come over here?
Okay.
I'll tell you, the vision is for us, is that the division should reflect the community in which it serves, and it does not currently. Currently, our community is white male dominated, the division is. And that doesn't mean that the officers who are here are not dedicated, because they are. We have some of the most dedicated, well-trained officers. However, there's a large segment of the community that is not represented in the division. And so for us, that is a priority. Not just for African Americans, but the Hispanic community, the Asian community. You have a very large, diverse New American community that's moving into Columbus. And so as a division, it's our responsibility that when they look out amongst the race, they see people who have the same aspiration, dreams, and look like them. And so for us, we're doing a very aggressive recruiting drive. We just signed on to 30 by 30, which is a national pledge to increase women in the ranks by 2030 by 30%. So that's huge for us, something that's never been done here. And we're the start. We're the start of seeing more diversity.
One of the issues that I see is, at least I live in Oakland, one of the biggest problems in this area is the drugs that's taking place. You know, it's reaching a younger generation. Somebody told me that they were probably in elementary schools sometimes. You know, it seems like every corner of the street there's somebody selling drugs, and that's what's really affecting our younger people. You know, it's very readily even in the prison system. You know, so no matter where you go, you just can't get away from them.
Part of that is education, right? Part of it is we all grew up in an era where the DARE program was in every school, but we also understood that that didn't do anything to curb drug violence. So one of the ways that we're trying to curb drugs is to just be in the schools, to continuously pour into the kids, to let them know that you don't have to smoke marijuana, you don't have to do cocaine, you don't have, there's so many drugs now that are designer drugs, but that's a whole bigger discussion, because I'll get on my soapbox about why those drugs are made and then why they're only sold in communities of poverty and color. There's a reason why big manufacturers target people that they feel are not as important as other people. But I'll say if you know a drug house, my narcotics team has been aggressively doing raids, and we're back to doing business as we've normally done it with the amount of raids and drug buys that we're doing. And we are making an impact, but as you said, for every drug house we hit, there's 2 or 3 more that open up. And so we need the community to tell us who they are so that we can put them out permanently.
Question on the progress on the response to drugs and mental health.
Yes. So we have 2 unique programs here. Currently, I think almost 85% of our officers are CIT trained now, which means that they got training in how to deal with the first line level of handling a mental health call. What we understand as officers, and this is no fault of the community or police officers, we have just been tasked with being everything to everyone. And we fail miserably when it comes to being mental health advocates. It's just not in our wheelhouse. Our wheelhouse is more enforcement based. And so thankfully, we recognize that in policing and we've created CIT programs that help officers to understand that just because you're having a mental health crisis doesn't make you a trouble. But we also have the NCR program, which is a joint venture with fire, EMS, and social workers. And so now we have people who are listening to those 911 calls and determining, is the police response the best response? And what we found is we really cut down on officers' uses of forces and things like that, because unfortunately, we're not equipped to handle mental illness. We're just not. And until we recognize it as a country and a community, you'll see mental illness being at the forefront of a lot of officer shootings and unfortunately a lot of deaths on the officer side and the community side. So there's still so much work to do, but it's a lot better than it was 5 years or 10 years ago.
Yes, ma'am.
Do they have any programs developed or have they thought of it for adolescents?
Yes.
To that is affordable, or they'll be able to.
So the Columbus Division of Police, we run a task program, which is Teen and Police together, and we're currently in several middle schools. But what we found is we can't just be in middle schools, we can be in elementary schools. And then we also need to be in the high schools, right? So we're partnering with other organizations that are embedded. Aaron Pink is an organization here in the city of Columbus, where we focus on rural mentorship. ICE, which is a organization in Columbus that focuses on mentorship for boys. And so the division no longer sits as a silo. We are embracing other grassroots organizations to come partner with us so that we can be in the schools and make it affordable, because we understand that for some people, paying to put their child in a program is just not affordable for them. And so they gotta pick between giving them something to do and paying their rent or bills. They're gonna pay their rent and bills, so.
Is it only in the schools?
Right now it's in the schools, but so the division doesn't have the capacity to develop things outside right now just because of our personnel. But we do have a collective of organizations that we can refer you to that are hands-on doing summer program right now currently in the city of Columbus. I'll give you my card, so, yeah.
Hello.
Thank you.
I had heard something about, the age being lowered, the minimum age to become a police officer to 18. Is that going to be happening here in Columbus?
So I will tell you, other states already have that. Other states, including Michigan, like I said, I came straight from high school at the age of 18 years old and applied to the Detroit Police Department, and I'm here now. There's pros and cons to that, right? There are pros because what we're seeing in the division is we have all these amazing programs, the NET program, PSN program, Explorers program, but then there's a gap. So when they age out, trying to hold on to them before they turn 21 and get in a policing agency, we're losing a lot of our young people in that gap. So for me, looking at it on the outside, it may be a great thing to have 18-year-olds that can funnel right into our police academy and then put them with mentorship. I'll tell you, being 18 and coming on the department, it was a transition. Because I didn't have life skills, but I was at your house telling you how to solve really adult problems that I had never faced. So is there a transition? Yes. But for me, if you can be 18 and join the military, then you should be able to be 18 and join your community and help serve in a capacity that you would like to. So I'm a little bit different because I was 18, but I do believe we still have to make sure that that person is mature enough to handle this responsibility, because we do have the responsibility of life and death. And so if you're not mature to handle that, but you can be not mature at 25 too. So, thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right. Well, thank you so much, Chief, and then also thank the other officers that are here. And one thing I always say, make sure if you know who your community liaison officer is, because they can be really helpful with actually things that you talked about there too. But they're very good contact for each and every community person, residents in Columbus, Ohio. All right, moving on. And let's see, so our next person to come up is, we're talking about legislative, right? Chief mentioned the legislative branch. And so we will bring up to speak, and I believe she's, all right, I'd like to bring up State Representative Tina Humphrey. Come on up.
All right, good afternoon. No, because I thought we were here to celebrate community power. Good afternoon. All right. Well, that sounds good. As was stated, I'm State Representative Latina M. Humphrey, and I have the current pleasure of representing Ohio's 2nd House District. And that is the entire east side of Columbus, the entire city of Whitehall. And then I have literal parts of Reynoldsburg, Groveport, Canal Winchester, Blacklick, and Blacklick Estates. And I gotta tell you, I am super excited to be here with you all, equally excited to be here on the south side of Columbus. Some of you may or may not know, but for the last 14 months, I represented Ohio House District 26. And that encompassed the entire south side of Columbus. So it feels good to be home with you all and seeing a lot of familiar faces. But I wanted to start by saying, I think today, because you have heard from many speakers, you're going to hear a lot of redundancy. You're going to hear a lot about what elected officials should be doing, what our public servants should be doing, what our community should be doing, and all of that. And I think that is fair. I think that all works in tandem with one another. You can't do one without the other. But one of the things, and I'm not going to labor before you all long, but one of the things I wanted to push out today is that it is important to talk about the community aspect. But even more so than the community aspect, I want to focus on the parental aspect. Now, see, that might be a little bit more conservative than my progressive colleagues would like to hear. But the reality is that we have a responsibility as parents when we talk about community and we talk about street violence and we talk about gun violence and we talk about all of the issues that happen in our community. Yes, we need to legislate more. Yes, we need real gun reform control laws, which we are advocating for in the House Democratic Caucus. Yes, we need all those things. Yes, maybe we need more police officers or whatever the case may be. But we as parents have a responsibility for our children. And one of the things I think is important to talk about is trying to prevent the issues on the front end before we get to the end of the thing. And then that leads to incarceration, and then that leads to death, and that leads to all the things that come with those issues. We have to talk about the parental piece. But I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the parental piece, but then talk about the community village. Because it does take a community to raise a child. It does take a village to raise a child. And so nowadays, which we believe in, which we're seeing, and we're moving into this space where there are organizations that are trying to support the parent as they support their child. And that's good, but I think a community lens is important. And I think as parents, sometimes we feel like, well, nobody can tell my child anything. I tell my child what to do, and that's the end of it. And you know, I've been guilty too. But at the same time, we all have to work together. And that is really important. So I'm super excited to be here. Glad to see all of you all. Glad to see you, one, for being engaged. Because you could be anywhere on a Saturday, the day before Mother's Day, but you all decided to be in this room to talk about community building and to talk about community power. And so my ask is that you give your own selves a round of applause for being here today. No, I think you guys can do better than that. A round of applause for being here today. Because my brother and my sister, because we have to support each other, and we do that by being in unification and in alignment with one another. So I'm not going to labor before you long, but I am State Representative Latina M. Humphrey. Thank you so much, and God bless.
She talks truth, and that is the truth about coming together. This is all about community, right? All right. So let's see here. What time are we at? 3 o'clock. 2:57. You maybe. John, do you want to take intermission? You want to keep moving? Keep moving. All right. Okay. So we talked about, State Rep Humphrey talked about legislation, right? But the other part of that then is, if you find yourself incarcerated or going through the process, there's that part where you go to the courts. And so we have someone here that can talk about that. And if you have questions of him, and also then, we'll swing back around toward the end. If you have any questions for the other speakers, we'll do that also. But so it's my pleasure to bring up the Honorable Judge Bill Hedrick. He's another one that we always see out in the community, really connecting. So I appreciate all your work that you've done currently and in the past.
All right. First, I'll say it's very difficult to follow some of the speakers I just followed. But I'm going to do the best that I can. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my journey to public service. And not just, I always tell people, it's not what I say I want people to carry. I want to tell you what I've done or what I want to do. Now, not every face in this room is a stranger to me. Many people have seen me. When Mr. Cox, he reached out to me, sent me an email. I didn't know who the young man was, but I've always had, if someone sends me an email or communications, I respond. And he says, can you come and be a speaker at this conference? I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to add any value, but I will gladly come. And it doesn't matter to me if you have 2 people here or if you have 50. I'm still going to show up. Now, a little bit about myself. I'm one of 15 municipal court judges. I represent you. I've been on the bench for a year and a half. I'm not new to public service. A little bit about my background, and I think, again, you're going to hear a common theme. I always tell people what I look like now and how I should carry myself does not mean that's where I came from. When I was on the campaign trail, I used to tell people, I'm going to give you a long detail about my background, but I'll let you know this. I'm originally from Southern Indiana, rural area. My legal name is Billy Ray. People often call me Billy Ray. But I also say that will tell you that name itself describes what my background was. I had more relatives that went to prison or jail than went to college. I'm one of the first people in my family that went to college. But I also tell myself, when people are like, Bill, you've done really well for yourself, you've lifted yourself up. I didn't do that by myself. I had help along the way, and I know that. I had teachers. I had a mother that was a good mother. I had government programs that helped me. I had summer employment programs. I think it's important that people, when they get to certain positions, don't forget how they got there. And they don't forget the people that were with them before. And we've served all the people. I worked at the city attorney. I went to law school here. I graduated from Ohio State. While in law school, I started working in the Columbus City Attorney's Office. I worked as an assistant city prosecutor for 24 years. Now, some people don't equate that with always being a good thing. I always tell everybody, I try to be a different kind of prosecutor. I enforce laws, but I also tried to do things that made the community better. And I was also greatly influenced by 2 very important employers I worked for. I originally was hired by Janet Jackson, assistant the city attorney, Janet Jackson, and then I worked for Rick Pfeiffer for multiple years. Both of them were outstanding public servants, and I think a lot of the better things that I've learned as a public servant, I learned from both of them. I picked up different things from them. From Mr. Pfeiffer, I learned you always go out in the community, you listen. And it's like, even when we take questions here, I tell people, I don't expect people to cheer. I don't expect them to clap. I'll try to answer their questions. If I have an answer that's not a good answer for you, I'll still provide that answer. But I'm going to give you some examples of things I did in my career prior to being a judge that I'm particularly proud of. When I was a prosecutor for 24 years, I was also the chief of staff of Mr. Pfeiffer. And that often involved going to a lot of programs. And one of the things I went to, representing the city attorney, was the graduation for the Restoration Academy, which was a program that Mayor Coleman had put together. And it was a program for people that had past felony histories, often very old felony histories, that couldn't get jobs. So he was working through the city, through this program, and then after they were done, they could try to get employment. as graduates. Now, I would often go to these graduations and I see people clap and cheer and be excited. I was one of those people. But I'm like, besides doing that, what else have I done? So I approached City Attorney Pfeiffer and I said, can we hire some of these graduates? So I'm very proud to say, while I was the chief of staff, we hired 5 people that were graduates from the Citizens Restoration Academy. Not only were they good workers, but it made a powerful statement. These were people that had prior criminal histories, but an office that would have possibly been responsible for prosecuting them gave them jobs. And multiple years later, I'm no longer at that office, but I can look at the rosters and those people still work there. And a city job is a good job. I also, for people who aren't familiar with Catch Court is a court that deals with women that are victims of human trafficking. It helps them get cleaned off, their criminal record cleaned. Again, I would use those graduations and I'd hear stories, well, they're working, nothing wrong with working at Chipotle, but often they weren't getting really good jobs. So we also hired a couple people from that program to work at the city attorney's office. And actually the Catch Court graduate, the first person I hired, I started them out with a part-time job. I wanted to see A, they could do the job, and 2, they worked their way up on their own. And eventually that woman ended up being my personal assistant and later on a bailiff to one of our judges who was in charge of the Catch Court. So these are things I point out. I don't point them out and say, clap or cheer. I point them out and say that public servants, we need to do things to make a difference. Not just attending events, but trying to figure out concrete things. Now, as a judge, I'm a misdemeanor judge. And for those of you who don't know what that is, those are crimes that are punishable by less than 6 months in jail and lawsuits under $15,000. Because I don't deal with juveniles, I don't deal with felonies. But I deal with people that are first coming into the system. My goal as a judge, and there is times I have to punish people. It's part of what I do. The most a person can do in jail in a misdemeanor is 1.5 years. But what we like to try to do, and it's not me, a lot of my fellow judges feel the same way, we have programming in place. I want to have things where I don't have repeat customers. So if someone appears before us, if they need to be punished, they'll be punished. But if they also need to be put on probation and given a chance with programming, we do that. Another thing we do as judges, we've been working really active on having expungements and sealings put on people's records. The laws in Ohio have become much more generous. The person that somebody is 20, when they're 20 and 21 and they got into a bunch of trouble, shouldn't be affecting their employment, their rental, and all these other things when they're 40. So we're now working to get those things off the record. And a lot of the judges, we go out and we volunteer at the clinics, and we do that. That's one thing we do. And another thing I do that sort of, judges can't take political positions, and there are limited things we can do. But I also think it's important for judges to be in the community. Since 2021, one of the things I'll do, Senator Craig will testify to that I do this. I am the city's #1 litter pickup as an elected official. Last Saturday was my 50th community cleanup that I've done since 2021. And I think that's important because 1, I'm out with members of the community. 2, I also tell you, anyone who volunteers to pick up litter, you're only gonna meet nice people. No one who's not a nice person volunteers to help pick up litter in their community. But you also get to know communities, and also I think it's important as a public servant, we need to be humble as well, because we serve you. Now, the only other thing I always promise, and I think anyone, if you ever have the opportunity to observe my courtroom, I always try to treat every person that appears before me with dignity and respect. Whether you're going to jail for something, you're going to be sir or ma'am in front of me, and I will give you respect. Now, sometimes they don't always give it back, but I've always learned when you give people respect, you usually get respect back. So people may not like what they get if they come in my courtroom, but I never want them to feel that they weren't treated fairly. And I also acknowledge again, I wasn't brought up rich, but I also acknowledge there are certain privileges I had, even in the position and where I came from, that the people that appeared before me did not. And I also know, even if they're for a lower charge, I take in consideration fines and costs, because that's important, because $100 may not seem like a fortune to me, but someone in front of me may not have the ability to pay that. So I want to create solutions. I want people to help them, but I also don't want to create obstacles for them, particularly financial obstacles that they cannot pay. So other thing I'll do, particularly for the young people in the room, and I'm lucky I have a great roommate on the bench, I have Judge McAllister. If we have young people that ever want to come and observe us, adults can as well. We welcome observers in our courtroom. I was embarrassed, sir, but because we have Judge Page over here. When Judge Page was a sophomore in high school, this is how old I am, she shadowed me when I was in the courtroom. I also had a couple of events recently I went to. I had a young lady, she's going to be a third-year law student. She goes, I shadowed your courtroom when I was a sophomore. So I think it's important we as elected officials welcome, one, our voters into our courtroom, but two, guide young people if they want to contact us. So that's a little bit about myself, a little bit what I do. And if you have questions, I'll also hang around later. So, Napoleon, it's all yours.
Oh, I was looking forward to it. Or if anybody has any questions at this point for Judge, and if not, then we'll come back around toward the end. All right, very good. Thank you so much, Judge. You know, Mr. Cox, again, you've done a very good job, and the people that you have had come to us, because as you also hear, the common theme is that they're out in the community, right? They're connecting with the community, because that makes a big difference, and they're learning about your perspective, and also they take that to whether it be the courtroom, or whether they take it to the legislature, or whether it's law enforcement. So really, this isn't something that they had to do, what have you, but this is something that's meaningful to them. Because I know that because of the fact that I see them out in every place that I go to also. And not during when it's election time or this, that, and the other, but at all the time that they're out connecting with the community, trying to make sure that they are in tune with what's going on in each community around Central Ohio. So we really appreciate that. So you did a really great job there. So the next judge that I'm going to bring up, I worked with a lot out on the east side as I was a community liaison officer for 9th Precinct, and her drive and focus on the east side to close down some hotels and different things that we did really made the difference. And so when you have someone like this judge that I'm going to bring up, she wasn't a judge at that time, she was a city attorney, but really made the difference. I know she might look like she's 20, but she has the knowledge and capacity that is that of someone of great age. So I'd like to bring up Judge Page.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much, Napoleon, for that introduction. I wish I was still 20, I could say that. But thank you. Again, my name is Jiza Page, and I am a judge in the Franklin County Court of Common Pleas General Division. And that is the court that handles all adult felonies. So for anyone who is 18 years and above who has committed a felony offense, as well as lawsuits that are $15,000 and up, and also any juvenile bindovers. So that is someone who is under the age of 18 who is being charged as an adult for the felony offense that they committed. Those are then bound over to the adult court. A little bit about me. I was born and raised here in Columbus, lived primarily on the north side of the Linden community until I was a teenager. Then my mom moved my brother and I to the east side of town by like Livingston and Hamilton. I graduated high school here, went to Washington, D.C. to attend college, worked on Capitol Hill, and believe it or not, at that time, no one could have told me I would ever go into politics or be in an elected office. I always knew that I wanted to be an attorney, though, since I was about 8 years old. And I had people in my life who kept me on that track, including my mom, Judge Hedrick, as he mentioned, the former Columbus City Attorney, Richard Pfeiffer. I came back here, attended the Ohio State University for law school, and then when I graduated, I became an assistant city attorney. And that's really where I began to see the issues that certain communities within our city are confronted with. And I dealt a lot with the vacant and abandoned houses, any place where they were selling drugs, getting those houses boarded up and stocked, as well as any corner stores. One of my bigger cases, for those of you who have been in Columbus for some time, was Motel 1 and getting that motel shut down, eventually demolished. And for anyone who's on the east side, it's now a bank at that location. And so that work for me was important because regardless of your zip code, regardless of your income, you should have the ability to live in a neighborhood that is safe, that is clean, that is affordable. And so I then was appointed to Columbus City Council, where I had the ability to do a lot of the work that I did as an assistant city attorney, just as a legislator. And some things that I did were really, I tried to focus on the youth, because I do believe and understand that they are our future, and helping them understand that at a young age, they can still give back to our community. So I did a lot of programs with trying to employ our youth and really just give them some of the skills that they need that they don't necessarily learn in school, like how to apply for a job, how to interview, and how to really be a good worker. I did that for a couple of years. We also had a program where we would pay young people to rehabilitate vacant and abandoned houses in the community. But I missed the courtroom. Like I said, I wanted to be an attorney since I was 8 years old. So with the encouragement of Richard C. Pfeiffer and family and friends, I decided to run for judge in 2018, won an election, and I've been on the bench since 2019. And I have enjoyed every single day of my job. And a lot of times people ask me, is it hard sending people to prison? And it is, because I believe that there are a lot of good people that make bad decisions. And so we have to view them as someone who had a day or maybe a period in their life where maybe substance use became an issue for them, or they had an undiagnosed or they were improperly diagnosed with a mental health concern. And so how do we properly address, unfortunately, a crime that they committed or they have hurt someone through the criminal justice system? And so we can put them on probation if they are a good candidate for that. Sometimes you do have to send people to prison, but it's not necessarily something that I wake up every morning and I say, oh, I can't wait to send 5 people to prison today. I'm really looking at them individually and trying to see what can we do to, one, eliminate the public safety issue that we may see with this person, but also to give them the opportunity to make better decisions. And sometimes that better decision is through community service or community control if we have the proper resources for them. But sometimes that better decision, unfortunately, may be a period of time in prison. One thing that I'm actually really excited about that we've done for the past 2 years, myself as well as Judge Hawkins, this year is going to actually be in person, is doing a youth summer camp. So during the pandemic, I was asked, what are you going to do for young people in our community who summer camps are now shut down, they're not in school, to give them something to do? So I started a virtual summer camp where we taught them about the legal system. And our first year, we had like 169 young people participate. Our second year, more people got back into in-person summer programming, and so we had a smaller number. But this year, through the support of the Franklin County Board of Commissioners, we're going to have our first in-person summer youth program at the Ohio State Morris College of Law. So we have actually more applicants than we are able to serve this year. But what I'm doing through this programming is letting young people, middle and high schoolers, understand the legal system. Because I believe if you understand it, hopefully you won't enter into it. And so we're going to teach them about the criminal justice system. We're going to teach them about their rights, and then hopefully give them some of the skills that they need to go out and teach their parents, to teach their community about what their rights are. And many of them want to be lawyers. Many of them want to be judges. So hopefully just inspire them and give them the opportunity to see what this career looks like. So we will be doing that during the second week in June. And as you can tell, I love young people. They are my heart. I don't ever want to see a young person tried as an adult, but unfortunately, sometimes we do see that. But I want to do the best that I can to make sure that there are no more children who are committing offenses such that they have to be tried as an adult and go through really a system that is not built for them. So a lot of the other things that we do, Judge Hendrick talked about, we're very similar in a lot of ways. I think we have a very similar judicial philosophy, and that we are looking at the individuals in front of us. They are not just a docket number. They are not just a criminal. I call people by their name to let them know that I respect you, I see who you are, and even in this moment, I have to make a tough decision, but I'm going to make that decision, again, respecting you with the utmost dignity and there's the utmost integrity. So I thank you all for your time today. If anybody has any questions, let me know. Yes, ma'am.
How old do they have to be to get the program?
So it's for middle and high school students.
Middle school, 12, 13, or is that too young?
As long as they're going into the 6th grade. So they could be 12 or 13, and just really entering into 6th grade.
Because I have one that's not able to get in the work program, but the skill, I already had some skill program starting also, checking 14, so I'm like, to enter.
Okay, well, I will speak with you afterwards. Any other questions or thoughts? All right, my courtroom doors are open. Please feel free to stop by anytime. I don't know, did you have a question or you're getting ready to do a sit down lady clap? All right, thank you all so much.
Thank you, Judge Page. All right. And before I go to our next speaker, just want to mention that Crossroads Outreach Ministry, Outreach Ministry, we're going to share the love of Christ. And if you get a chance to stop by there, please do that. We've got some information up here for them. And then also the Urban Farmers Coalition. They present Fresh Life Festival every second Tuesday at 3312 South Hamilton Road in Columbus, Ohio. So it's a free grocery. So if you want more information, from 4 to 7. So if you want more information on that. And then last but not least, Avenue for All will be held on June 10th from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. And we'll engage at the South Side community along Parsons Avenue from Livingston to Hosat. So they anticipate about 750 attendees, so make sure you get there. All right. And I think Mr. Cox is passing out something here real quick, getting that information out. So for our next speaker, I do have, so if I was a reading person, I have a long bio, right? But I'm not going to read all that, right? Because the thing is that our next speaker is, if you don't know him, then you don't live in Columbus, Ohio. That's all I'm going to say. So, again, I've worked, I talk about people who are embedded in the community, working for the community and with the community. This person I worked with also as an officer, and he headed up, I think it was Berwyn East Civic Association, but also was out there, marching with us, really putting in the work in the community. So I've known him before city council and all of that, but I've watched him, go up through the ranks and continue, but his main focus has always been community. So I will read his first part though. State Senator Herschel Craig currently represents Ohio's 15th Senate District and holds the position of Assistant Minority Leader. Craig has an extensive background in public service at the state and local level. Prior to being elected in the Ohio Senate in 2018 and 2022, served in the Ohio House and on Columbus City Council. Craig serves as a ranking member of the Senate Insurance and Veterans and Public Safety Committee. Senator Craig also sits on the Senate Finance, Medicaid, and Rural Reference Committees. In addition, Senator Craig serves as a Sergeant at Arms for the Ohio Legislative Black Caucus. And if anybody knows about the legislative piece, it is a tough time to be able to get things through. So he is working hard to really protect the rights, but also work on, he'll talk more about what he's doing. But I would like to bring up longtime friend, but also longtime advocate for the community, Senator Herschel Craig.
The book of Micah lifts this query. It raises this interrogative: what does the Lord require of me? The word comes back to do justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly before the Lord. I say that because today it's hope in the community. And if you will do me a great honor and privilege, and would you stand on your feet for that young man right there? Deshaun, would you honor him today? You can do better than that. You can do better than that. And we do that because so many times we talk about our young people, we see things, and many of those are real. I'm a preacher, so I've looked over in caskets or preached them. 14-year-olds laying in a casket. So when we see young people doing extraordinary things, we ought to be glad about that. Yes. And we ought to celebrate that. Yes. And so I certainly wanted to be here with you today, but more so than that, right down, I can literally walk from my house to here. My mother came here over 50 years ago, the only house she was ever able to buy. I now live in that house. But long before, there were many things in this community. My mother would literally get out and sweep the street. That's how much she cares about. She cares about. She's gone on and transitioned. But I'm standing here today because of my mother and so many that deposited into my life. Many of those did not have formal education. My scout leader, my mother was my den mother. And so being with you today really makes all the difference in the world to me. I love the South Side. I still reside at 1026 Linwood Avenue, and I'm gonna be here. So, but today is about you. I can talk about and I will share kind of what we have done in the legislature, but long before we got in the legislature, I was, like many of you, I was president of my civic association and working with police officers like Nat Bell, who was really committed to community. He was not just being there because he had to be there, but he guided us through many things. We actually shut down a place where they were having a lot of things going on in it, prostitution, other kinds of things, selling illicit drugs. And we went there. We weren't mad at the folk. We were mad at the process affecting the lives of the community. And so long before I got into public office. But having done that and then serving on Columbus City Council for about a decade, none of those things were guaranteed. It was because of you has allowed me to serve in office as long as I've had. Because reality, and many of us have said, you're not guaranteed to do this. It's accountability, it's transparency, it's responsibility. I'm looking at the faces of these young men and women. We owe it to them to be responsible, to be committed, to make sure that they have ladders of opportunity and a quality of life. That's why all of us are here today. So serving on Columbus City Council, I served as President Pro Tem on council, which is the second person in position of authority to do the work that you've asked me to do. I then was being able to move on from there to the state legislature in the House and then to serve in the Senate. Never had an idea, Judge. My mother came here cleaning houses as a maid. The strongest woman that I've ever known, a learned woman, went on to teach schools. In fact, in this very building was an elementary school. My mother served here, working with children, growing children, and then before she died, working with seniors so that they could find decent employment in their later years. And so all of those things are the reason why I'm standing here today. But then serving in the Senate, I've been very fortunate and able to move legislation. The last, we call it the last General Assembly, being able to move a major cancer bill, working with the Ohio State University, calling fail-safe so that the doctor could make the decision and not the insurance company. So we were able to get that passed. Then we were able to, you all are going to be celebrating Juneteenth, many of you. I was able to get an amendment in the budget. I didn't just want a holiday. I want a paid state holiday. And so when you say state workers and others, That's the reason why they're able to enjoy that day. And we all need to enjoy that day, understanding the history of this nation. The other thing we've been able to do is put $1 million in the African American Extension Center. A lot of young people, African Americans, all young people will be able to benefit as we rebuild that facility. Right now, they're already under construction. We've been able to work with Ohio State University. I want a dental clinic, and I've worked with them over the last 2.5 years. We now have a space for that facility at the Ohio State University Outpatient Center, so that all of our children, as a young person, my mother, we were very poor, so we did not have a private physician or a private dentist. And so when we went to the dentist, we had abscess, you'd almost be dying. I don't want children, when they go to the dentist, my children have had a different experience. So you go early and often to the dentist. And so the legislature, with the help of Representative Humphreys, we moved $750,000, and then we got some gap money coming in to that facilities. I'm asking for another $300,000 or $400,000 so that we can have sustainability in that building, so that families, so that seniors, so that children will have an opportunity to get their dental care, because dental affects everything to your body. So I want to make sure that we get that. I've got legislation around insulin, to cap insulin. A mother came to me. Her daughter was in college, getting ready to graduate. Her son found her daughter dead, rationing insulin. That should never be. And so what I'm hoping to do is cap insulin at $35, so that we can all, we found that my great-grandson has juvenile diabetes. And so we're watching, he plays soccer, he's a brilliant young man, but we're watching him all of the time, because that is nothing to play with. And so we're looking at that legislation. The other thing that I've offered is legislation regarding so many families have lost their homes or looking at losing their homes. And so we're looking at right now with that issue, 2 reasons. One, we want to look at this property tax issue and seeing if we can cap that issue. A lot of seniors reside here, other young families. So I want progress to occur, but I also want to make sure that grandma stays in her home, or anybody stays in their home that are being here. So we're working on that legislation right now. Also, we're looking at lots of issues regarding housing. It's a critical issue in the state of Ohio. The mayor talks about it, and it's real. Intel, is we already know, is coming. I want these young people to get those jobs from the South Side. So we need to be preparing them to get these jobs. Not only is Intel here, but we have a number of other corporations that is residing, is coming to Central Ohio. The area will grow exponentially. We know that. But everybody ought to be able to live in a home and be able to pay their bills and to be able to buy their medicine, and buy their groceries. So we've got to make sure that everybody has quality of life. So we've got all of those things. You can look at my record and tell. Because one of the things I know about elected officials is not what we say. It's what we do. You can look at my record and you can tell. And I tell folks, hold me accountable. Hold me accountable. I want you to do that, because it's just too important. We had almost 1,000 people come to the legislature around an issue around this voting in the Constitution. They were there almost all day long, making sure that our voting is such a precious thing that we don't lose the accountability, the right to vote. And so for all of you today, I know the hour is late. I want you to know how much I love you. I'm going to be present. I'm going to be here as long as I got breath in my body. We're going to make sure that the South Side, every side of this city, have the resources that they need for their families and children. God bless you and have a wonderful day.
Goodness. Right? Right? One heck of a lineup. One heck of a lineup, right? It's all about community. It's all about hope for the community, right? Inspiring. I mean, if you're not inspired from today, there's something wrong. We need to get you something. I don't know, coffee or something, right? So we're going to cap it off at the at the end of the day here. With I'll say the lead speaker, but the speaker who brought all of this together, right? The speaker who brought this all together is going to end us out today. So please put your hands together.
Well, first I want to say thank you to everybody coming today. Thank you for letting my vision come to life. Like I said earlier, I don't know if everybody was here, but just like my vision behind it is that like what my main goal is. My main goal is to bridge that gap between the community and our elected officials. And just, I'll tell a little bit myself about my journey. Reaching all these people, it was amazing. And I thought to myself that it's amazing that the resources that I have. So I thought to myself as a 19-year-old, second-year student at The Ohio State University, how am I able to bring my resources that I have back into my community? And that came about, I'm passionate about public service, but it came about when things started happening to me and then also to my friends. So for myself, throughout my childhood, I lost about 5 friends due to gun violence. So that's where I came up with the initiative. Well, what is it something that, that I can do differently within my life and then also do differently for those that look like me? So that's when I set the standard for myself, and I set the standard kind of high is that, I would go to college and I would just be different, and I won't be the stereotype that's put forth amongst, young men that look like me. You know what they say about us, the bottom line, but I'm here to shape that and to change that. So yeah, that's kind of a little bit about my vision. Yeah, I think that more so when it comes to gun violence and just the things that we're seeing in our community is that it starts at home with us. One thing that we need to do is that we need to all reflect on ourselves. I say my motto is each one to teach one. It takes for me to do right in my life and to do great things in order for me to inspire somebody else, and then let's keep that vision going. So like right now today, just by all of us being here, like they said earlier, we all could be doing anything else right now. But each and every one of you guys took the initiative today to sit with me, to listen to our amazing speakers, and let's give it a round of applause to these speakers. Going through the process of picking who you want to speak, I wanted people to speak that reflect this community and that actually care about us in this community. Each and every one of these people, they sat down with me and they became a mentor for me that I'll probably have for the rest of my life, and I appreciate you guys for that. Without them supporting my vision of me wanting to be an elected official, me wanting to go to college, and the support of my family and just you guys alone, where would I be right now? And that's my vision for right now. So this won't be the first event that I have. This won't be the last, just because I want more stuff like this. I want to be able to bring the community together, and that's kind of a little bit what I'm all about. And I'm starting young. I'm starting at the age of 19, and that's the one thing that I want to do for myself. I want to give my so for myself, it was amazing that I have mentors, and I found myself mentoring other people. So by being the oldest of 12, I don't know where my siblings at. Right here, one of my siblings, Aaliyah. But when I looked at them, and even for some of my cousins in the room, when I looked at them, I saw something amazing. And even when I look into the crowd right now, I still see amazing things. People that own businesses, people that want to pour back into this community, and people that was actually born in this community. So for myself, I'm extremely proud that you guys are here with me. I'm proud of myself because I grew up in these streets. And I think that's why I'm so passionate about public service, just because I'm learning what it takes. And then I understand how it feels. I understand how it feels to, not have a lot. I didn't grow up with a lot and just stuff like that. And, having to boil water to take a bath and just stuff like that. So I went through all of those struggles, and it may not look like that right now, but that's why I'm going to make sure that I'm somebody that reflects my community and someone that can help pretty much anybody. So I know that they said it, but even for myself, if I can help anybody in this room in any kind of way, get you connected with resources, having a conversation, anything like that, I'm open to it. I'll be to give you guys my information after, and I appreciate everybody for coming out here today.
Yeah.
Yeah, he deserves all that. So, but before we go, we do want to get a picture of all the speakers that go up here, and then after that, we would like any of you to come up front also, please, to get a speaker. So, crowd around. So,
sorry to cut you off. Take this time to network with these elected officials. You know, talk to them, get to know them personally. You know, they're humans too. Get some of those research that they have to offer. This is what this event is for. So don't just hurry up and rush out. You know, take you some pictures, talk with them. They volunteer to do this. This is what they do. They love community stuff. Pastor Corey is here. So Pastor Corey will come up and pray for us.
all right, before we go, Pastor, come on up, and then we'll get the picture.
And what I would like for everybody to do in this room, we are all not strangers in here. We are family. So if everybody could touch somebody, so that way we can get prayed for. Please and thank you.
Want everybody go ahead and stand up.
Everyone stand up, please. Touch somebody, anybody.
All right, so as everybody is touching, won't you guys just shout hope? Hope! For the community.
For the community.
Now look at your neighbor and say, neighbor.
Neighbor.
I'm talking about you.
I'm talking about you.
Look at your other neighbor and say, neighbor.
Neighbor.
We know that's right.
You know that's right.
Our gracious and heavenly Father, we come to you boldly before the throne of grace, humbly as we know how. As we are sampling right now, Father God, the hope that you instill inside of us. We thank you, Father God, for the vision that you have in this young man. We ask you, Father God, won't you allow each and every person to be able to ignite. Someone shout ignite. The vision and hope for our community. As we stand together right here, hand in hand, Father God, allow your Holy Spirit to be able to radiate between us, Father God. Allow it to be able to come forth, Father God. Allow it to be able to set the example right here, right now. It doesn't matter, Father God. Right now, we're coming from the south, north, east, and west, Father God. We're coming together under your banner to be able to spread hope for our community. And we just give you the prayer and close. We are doing right now, Father God. We're praying for our nation.